Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing good today. This is going to be a different kind of video for me, something I've not done before, but I hope you enjoy it. So about 2 weeks ago, I got a comment on a video I did about two years ago, I think maybe it was, on the Philco model 461201. And here's a picture of it in the corner, right here. And these things were very, very popular in 1946. Matter of fact, they called it the Bing Crosby model.
You'll make friends of every stranger
with a Philco record changer,
from the table size
to those that weigh a ton.
Or to make your life ecstatic,
And we can't be too emphatic.
get that brand new automatic
1201.
Yes, yes, for jazz or operatic. Yeah, jazz or operatic.
That's good, Bill. In
a ballroom or an attic.
That's where we're going, in an attic.
Get Kane's Warehouse gets us in the morning.
Get the simple but dramatic 1201.
And remember, folks, let me hear that chord. Ah, I got it out.
Good.
F is for fashion, fidelity, or fame.
S is for fabulous, as you know.
First with the finest is spelled with an F. And Philco, you spell P-H-I-L-C-O. P-H-I.
P-H-I-O-L-C-O.
Philco, you spell C-I-L-C-O.
Without an F.
They put his name on it, and they probably sold, I won't say millions, but I'm sure they sold quite a few of them. And anyway, I restored 2 of these things, as you remember. And I got a comment from a person in Portland, Oregon by the name of Monika who said, hey, I just found one of these things and it hums. What do I do? So, well, you know what? I'm going to let Monika tell you this story, so let's watch that now.
Hi, this is Monika. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I found this gem at an estate sale very close to where I live. As soon as I brought it home, I started researching whether I can make it work again. And this is when I found Ron's webpage, the YouTube videos, and he seemed to know everything about this. So I started asking him questions on different things. And I soon realized that as far as the wooden parts, the outside, I am fine to restore this, I can do this, but the electricity stuff, I had no idea about. I think Ron, through the questions that I asked, I think Ron realized this also. So he offered to restore this for me. So I took advantage of this offer. The very same day that he offered, I packed the insides and sent it to Ron in hopes that he wouldn't change his mind. This is, to me, it seems like this is such a kind thing to do, to make sure that I won't get hurt during the electricity part, restoring of this radio gramophone combo. So now I will be waiting for Ron to send those back and put them back together and enjoy this for the future. And Ron, thank you again. This is amazing.
Okay, so let's open up this box now that Monika's explained to us what's going on. And let's see what's in here. And we're gonna restore this thing electrically to make sure that it's safe. And I have to commend Monika for having the smarts to not attempt to do this, because this stuff can kill you, as everybody knows. So we're going to restore this thing. We're going to send it back, and Monika will have a nice little piece there that she acquired in her local garage sale or flea market, I think it was. So let's see what we have. So I'll get this thing unboxed, and then we'll take a look at what we're going to do. Well, here we have something very interesting. I didn't know that Philco made gingerbread with fruit filling and chocolate plum cookies. Seriously, thank you, Monika. This is appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's keep digging. Alright, so she's all unpacked. First thing I have to say, Monika, you packed it really well. Thank you. Great job. This turntable is pretty darn clean. Much cleaner than the ones that I restored. And this is going to be a pleasure to restore. Underneath here, it virtually looks brand new. Mine, I had a lot of cleaning to do, a lot of rust. We are probably going to take this motor apart and grease it and re-lube it and put it back in. These motors tend to bind up, but we're going to test that. And it looks like someone's been in here before. This wire is not original. And you could see someone use the electrical tape method. So I expect that someone may have tried to restore this already. And we're going to find that out together when we look at the chassis, which is right now. We're going to be really careful here because everything is attached. Here's our speaker. And our speaker cone appears to be okay. I don't see any rips or anything. Just a little dirt. It's expected. After all, this thing is 70 years old. And this chassis is like spotless. Look at that. Now one thing, this must be a very late production run because I noticed that they have a 7-pin tube here. This is probably the rectifier tube. I haven't done any research on this thing yet. Let's see what kind of tube it is. Looks like it's a 50B5 maybe? I don't know. I gotta look it up. But I don't remember having a 7-pin tube on mine. But this thing is extremely clean. We do have a broken dial cord, so that'll be fun, right, Bill? Old 64 Goat loves the dial cords. And I don't see a dial pointer yet, but I'm sure it's here somewhere. If not, we'll figure something out. And let's see. Our cans, this thing is really, really clean. There is a tube shield on the 7C6. I didn't have that on mine. And here's a 50X6, a 7B7, and I'll have to take a look at that. So let me get myself situated here with these tubes, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So this thing does have the typical problems that I had on mine, the burned diffuser, right? There's a light bulb in here, a Christmas bulb, and it burns that. What I did on mine is I put an LED bulb in. We're going to do that here too, and we're going to replace the diffuser. Let's take a look underneath. So underneath looks fairly original. Let's see what we have here. So we have the original electrolytic. So this is why the radio hummed when you turned it on, Monica, because this electrolytic is bad. You got to remember, it's 70 years old. They dry out, and when that happens, they start to do things they shouldn't do, which can damage the radio. So it's a good thing we're taking care of it. Here's another pair of filter caps that we're going to replace. And then we have these wax caps under here. And if you look, you can see this one already popped its top out. So that's fairly normal for these things. So to restore this, we're going to replace the electrolytics. We're going to replace these wax capacitors right here. There's another one under here. And you'll notice this one has wire wrapped around it. That's called a gimmick. And there's another one underneath here. We're also going to replace the power cord, and we're going to put in something that's safer. And it does say on the back here that it's a model 1201-130, so this is the last production run. So this is clearly one of the last models that they made. And if we take a look at the manual, which I happen to have for this radio and turntable, let's take a look at the code. Code 130. It's the same as code 128, except that a 50B5 output tube is used in place of the 50A5. So this is the 7-pin tube that I was telling you. It's a 50B5. And let's see, this one has a permanent magnet speaker. Mine didn't. Before this code, okay, nothing really unusual to cover here. So first thing we're going to do is replace the filter caps on this thing. We're not going to plug it in. We're going to replace the power cord, do all that work. We're going to, let's see. Yep, we're going to replace that bulb, replace the diffuser, do the dial string, and then we'll test it out. And then on the turntable, we're likely going to have to replace this cartridge. These are crystal cartridges, and the crystal goes bad after all these years, and we're going to have to replace it. And I'll talk to Monika about that if she wants to do that. I think it's about $15 or something to replace it, so I'll see if she's interested in doing that. If not, if she's not going to use the turntable, then we won't do it. So let me get to work on these capacitors, and we'll be back. One thing I want to take a moment here for Monika's sake is to show her this power cord. You can see how the insulation is missing. So plugging this thing in, kind of dangerous. So if you ever buy any other old electronics like this, be careful when you plug it in. This absolutely could have popped your circuit breaker and caused a bunch of sparks. So just keep an eye on that when you buy something like this. Just be careful. Like I said, we're going to replace it. Okay, here's the first filter cap we're going to change. It's a 2-section cap. It's a 40 microfarad and a 10 microfarad at 200 volts. And you'll see that there's an orange wire and a red wire, and it tells you that. And the black one here is the negative. So we're going to replace that first. Then we're going to get to these. So I'm just more than documenting this for Monika than anybody else, because you guys probably know this already, but I want Monika to see what we're doing so she understands. So let's get to that. Alright, because we have such limited real estate here, I don't want to be installing terminal strips to replace the capacitors. So here's the capacitor we took out. Here's the two that replace it. You can see they're much smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to restuff them back in this tube here. We're going to take the old capacitor out, like so. This is the bad one. And we're going to reinstall these new ones inside of here, and then we're going to put it back in the radio. So it'll look original, but it'll have modern components. So that's how we're going to do it. This way we maintain the space that's being utilized here, and we're good. Let's get to it. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to use this circuit board that I have. It's a really small circuit board, and I've got the two capacitors. One is a 10 and one is a 47. That's the closest we have. They don't make those the 40 anymore, at least practically. And if all goes well, we're going to be able to slip this right inside this case here, like this, and we'll have the wires coming out the end, and it'll be just like it was meant to be, right in there. That's the plan. Let's get it. Okay, we have our capacitor experiment, I guess, put back together. So Monika, you're going to be fortunate that you've got the only one that exists in the world, made just for you. And we are following the color codes here. Again, it says that a 40 microfarad cap, let's get it in camera, 40 microfarad cap is orange, and that the 10 is red. And we see we have the orange and the red wire here. This will slip right in, like so. And we're going to use a little bit of hot glue on the ends to hold everything together. And we are good to go. And we'll be able to put this thing right back in the radio. So that's cool. I've never done one of these before. So you got it first, Monika. Okay, this piece is ready to put in. It's back to normal. It's all good. And we're going to move on to the next thing. But before we put this back in, we've got a couple of other things we got to do. So if I put this back in, it's going to make it really hard to change this and to change these. So because I followed the color codes, it'll be really easy. Here's my orange, here's my red, here's my black. I'll be able to connect it when I'm ready. I'm going to use this metal stamp, and if anybody wants a free bird, I could send it out to you. You know, Monika, I can send you the bird if you want. It's free. Just let me know. All right, let's proceed. Okay, here's the other two electrolytic capacitors that have to be replaced. They're both 30s. They're both 150 volts. And we're going to replace them with these. These are 33s at 500 volts. And you'll notice they're even smaller, and they're 5 times as capable as these. We're not going to remove them yet because we need to get all this underneath. So we're going to get all these underneath replaced first, and then we're going to do these. We're probably going to reuse this plastic sleeve on these things just to make it look as authentic as we can. So the plan is going to be replace this, this, and this first, and then we'll be able to reinstall these components. This one here, let's see if we can figure out what value it is while we have you on the camera. This is a little crusty. Can't see it. We'll have to scrape the wax off to see that. It's probably a 0.1. This is a 0.05. That's your tone cap likely. And this is probably a 0.01. And I'm not sure what that is. So let me get these replaced. This is a 0.2 on here. let me get these all replaced and then we'll come back. Okay, just an update here. We've got almost all the caps replaced. So we've got that one, this one, this one, this one, and there's a small one underneath there. They've all been replaced. Here's all the victims that we've taken out. You'll see this one here is melted, so this thing got really hot at some point. And we only have two left to do. We've got this one here, and we've got this one. So we're going to do that, and then we'll put the new electrolytics in that I showed you, and we will reinstall this piece that we put back together. So we're getting close, and then we're going to do a test and see how the radio works. We'll return. Okay, at this stage, all capacitors have been replaced that needed to be replaced. The electrolytics are in. I decided not to use the plastic cover that was on there. I would have had to destroy it to get it off. That's these. This is really just meant for insulation back then when they did this. So it's not really essential. It would have looked nice, but it's okay. So these are replaced. All this is done. All that's left to do now is change the power cord, which here's one piece of it, and here's another piece of it, and reinstall the electrolytic right here, and we are ready to do a test. I'm actually happy to see on this one that they changed the wiring. On the one that I did, which was an older version, it had that experimental rubberized wire, which was crumbling, and I had to rewire the entire radio. This one, the wires are good, so I'm happy about that. So that's the plan. I am going to test this bumblebee cap here. So we'll see what's going on with that. I don't know if we need to change that or not, but we're gonna take a look at it. All right, I'll be back. Okay, just a quick update. Our electrolytic cap is back installed and wired correctly. I put heat shrink around the connections here. So we are in real great shape now. So now to do the power cord, and then we're going to do a test. Okay, we have a new power cord installed here, and we wired it so that the hot, which is right here, is wired to the switch, which will pull the shot back a little bit, is right here. So we really reduce the risk of putting the plug in different ways and having a hot chassis. So the hot is wired to the switch, neutral is wired here, and this thing is a little bit more safer now than it was. Alright, now we're going to get this thing set up to do our first power on test, and we'll see what happens. Stick around. And here's all the pieces we had to replace to get it to get to our first test. Nothing. Piece of cake. Okay, we're ready to test our radio. I've done a preliminary test and it doesn't smoke or anything like that, which is good. Let's turn it on. We've got power, so I know electrically it's good. And we have some sound coming out of it, probably for the first time in 74 years. Who knows? But it does have some problems. That speaker, if we look at the speaker close for a second, there's a little tear in the speaker right there. So we're going to have to put some, repair that, that's easy. And we're going to have to do an alignment, which means that we tune it in to the radio stations correctly. So the radio does work, which is great. Now I just need to fine tune it. So let me get to that, and I'll come back. Okay, I don't know if you heard that in the previous video, but the speaker sounds really bad, and it's because of this crack here. So we're going to fix that. And the way we do that is with an old ordinary coffee filter. It's an Elmer's glue. Okay, so we've cut a piece of coffee filter, and we're going to apply a bunch of glue right around that area. But first we're going to put some on the paper itself. So let me put a good amount there. We want to soak this paper, basically. So we've got glue all over it. We just want to soak it completely on one side. There we go. This paper is very thin. It'll work out perfectly. And now we're going to apply this on top of the speaker cone. But we don't want to go near the center. Okay? If there's any overlap here, we can always trim it. Like that. We've got some really good adhering going on there. Now we're going to put a little bit more glue on top, like that. Just a little. We're going to make sure we go on the edges so this doesn't come off. And again, we don't want to go anywhere near the center. We just want to repair that speaker cone. And then we're going to take a look on the other side and see if we have any evidence of further rips. We have a little bit right there. That's the same spot that we just patched. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of push together, make sure that it's lined up. And I think that will be fine. So we're going to let this dry now. And then we're going to test the radio again and see how the speaker sounds. That's a little trick that we use, coffee filters. There it is. Okay, we are going to start focusing a little bit on some of the other parts of this radio. The radio is playing really good, and I'll talk about what I did to fix that. Okay, so how did we get the radio working? Well, if you remember, I mentioned that there was a bumblebee cap in there. And that's really just a bypass cap that goes from the audio section of the radio out to the speaker. And typically, if that capacitor is leaky or bad, you're going to get bad audio. Well, I changed that cap, and the audio did get better, but it wasn't perfect. It was still very distorted. So what I did was I took out the tube, which was the 50B5, and put it in my tube tester, and it was spiking the needle at 100%, which is not right for a tube. So I replaced it with another 50B5, and lo and behold, the audio is perfect. So that tube is bad. It may be a little bit leaky, actually. I did notice, looking at the tube here, that there's a little bit of a white spot there, which typically means that there's air in it. I don't know. I don't think there's air in this thing, but this is the bad tube that we took out. Like I said, I had one in stock, just popped it in, and it's working good now. So the audio is crystal clear. So we're in good shape with this thing. But we're going to focus on this diffuser and putting on the dial string and getting all that done. So here's the diffuser that was in there. It's just a piece of plastic, and laying up against that hot Christmas bulb all those years turns it brown. So we're going to replace that, and you'll see here there's a little clip. And then we're going to put the dial string on, and we're going to reinstall this dial pointer, which Monika just sent to me. It fell out of the box when she opened it, and sent it to me, and I just got it yesterday, so we're going to reinstall that. And I also replaced the Christmas bulb with an LED bulb. So what was in here originally was an old standard hot bulb. So now we have an LED bulb in there which never gets hot, so it'll never ever mess up again as far as messing up the diffuser. So what are we going to do? How are we going to replace this thing? Well, we're going to use something rather unconventional. If you've seen my other series on this type of radio, you'll see what I did, but I'll do it for Monika's purposes because Monika wants to see how we're fixing this thing. So let me go get that, and we'll be right back. And here's the answer. It's an old lampshade. Where's my focus? There it is. I have an old lampshade that was in my garage, not using it. I had a choice of either going in the garbage or something else, and we're choosing something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice little slab of this thing out like this, and we're going to peel off the fabric because there's fabric on it, and then we're going to cut it to size for our existing diffuser, which is right here. So we're going to cut it to size, and we're going to use the same material, and this stuff works even better than the original. I'll put a flashlight under here and you can see how well it lights up. So this is going to be perfect. So we're going to cut the diffuser, and we're going to install all that stuff. Now I had intended on making this a one-part series simply because you know, you've seen me do this one before, but I do still have a little bit of work to do here before I get this thing back out to Monika. So so I'm going to end this episode here, and there'll be an episode 2, which is the final. And in the final, we're going to test the turntable and you know, make sure that the turntable works. I also am waiting for a cartridge. I'm putting a new cartridge in there in the turntable so we can test that. So that'll be in episode 2. and we're in good shape. So I will close out this episode by you seeing the radio playing and playing well, and we will come back in episode number 2. So let me get the radio playing, and we'll be right back. All right, here's the radio playing.
To trust the Lord. What would you say to those who are still dealing with feelings of fear?
The speaker sounds good. We're going to manually turn this dial a little bit.
Trust God, not just
Different factor. May show you this tonight. If not, I'll have it for you later in the weekend. But Jags Report Live got moved to Tuesday.
this way.
Going, don't be tempted to. Also, yet without understanding.
Illegal. In Jacksonville and throughout Florida. Go Rays! Sam's got something to say about that. Hey, he's back, Brent. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so the radio's playing. Okay, so that's it for episode 1. In our next episode, we're going to have the dial string installed, we're going to have the dial pointer installed, we're going to have the diffuser installed, and we're going to have the turntable running and playing a couple of old records. So stay tuned, and get to know Monika. She found something really nice here to restore. So we'll see you guys in episode 2. Take care.